សូមអរគុណដែលបានចូលរួមស្ដាប់ podcast របស់សមាគមសហគ្រិនវ័យក្មេងកម្ពុជា YEAC podcast នេះត្រូវបានឧបត្ថម្ភដោយទីភ្នាក់ងារជំនួយអាមេរិក USAID តាមរយៈអង្គការ PAC ប្រចាំនៅកម្ពុជា
Good afternoon to followers on Facebook and everybody, members of Young Entrepreneurs Associations who are joining us now. As you see, we have esteemed panelists in this last panel discussion. And today, I would also like to invite the audience, the participant, to prepare questions as well to share. As you all know that this session is dedicated to providing constructive comments in order to help build our private sectors, our business community. So that is our ultimate goal of this session. So I'd like to start by just ask respective president about the impacts of COVID-19 on the businesses of your fellow members in your respective association. How has COVID-19 impacted the businesses, American businesses in Cambodia? To start with Anthony.
Thank you for the question. I think it's impacted basically businesses the same across many of our associations. I think we have a lot of common sectors that we all share, even common members. So I would first say there's been an enormous demand on healthcare, and that's been a global phenomenon. I don't think the healthcare sector was prepared for the amount of those that would be infected and the amount of people that would be hospitalized and possibly even casualties. So that I think is number one. The education sector was severely affected. We had most of our children going from being in school to having to go online, and we had to not only deal with online learning, which is very difficult, but for our students to have attention, but also very difficult that you had to have your children taken care of because they were no longer in school those periods of time. Hospitality was devastated. It's no secret. I think I'm on the board of the Cambodian Restaurant Association. We estimate about 60% of restaurants in Cambodia were closed. And I think the number of hotels is probably even higher. Worker protection became a big issue. So there's new emerging industries and masks, sanitizers, and all the medical supplies that were needed. Delivery became a very big transformation for the industries that were used to in-house or in-person shopping, for instance, or in-person dining. Delivery transformed completely the way we actually, our behavior in terms of how we eat and how we shop. And I think it was, for me, I don't want to take up every industry. I'm sure I could overlap with a lot of what others will say, so I don't want to take up the whole space. But one thing I would say is also was a catalyst for giving. I think that's changed we all sort of rallied. We all realized that we're in one community, and the associations definitely, even foreign, rallied to give back to the community and give back to the country.
Okay,
I'll leave it for others to talk about other sectors. I think I've dominated too many already, so I'll leave it.
All right. Thank you very much. But in your observation, you see more Americans coming to invest in Cambodia. They are prepared to come back, or they are prepared to intensify their investment anytime soon.
Yeah, America has a very funny relationship with trade and investment in Cambodia. We are the largest buyer, single country buyer of goods. We represent about 40% of the exports out of the country. However, we're not a big investor in the country. So we support the economy really differently. The US economy is still the largest in the world. And right now it was the fastest to recover ahead of Europe and Asian countries. So the dependency on American exports has dramatically increased until the other economies recover. However, our investment in the country is not large. And I don't see that changing given the current situation.
I see. Okay, but I still keep being optimistic, that given such situation, we know that we want to see more American investing in Cambodia and exporting to America.
I'll just leave it with one thing about the U.S. investment. And I kind of say this quite a bit in the press. You don't see us, but we're there. We're what you call intangible. Everything you're using almost every day, we're there. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple, the list goes on and on. So we're an everyday use. We're probably one of the most dominant in terms of what your consumers use in terms of their everyday life, but we're not bricks and mortar.
Okay, we'll expand on that, Anthony. Okay. So I'd like to turn to Yoko-san. Yoko-san, how has COVID-19 impacted Japanese business community in Cambodia, to your knowledge?
So the impacts of COVID depending on the industries. So the JBAC has 7 departments organized by industry, including manufacturing, construction, real estate, foreign trade, transport, finance, insurance, commerce, and service. Especially for manufacturing companies, the COVID pandemic has posed significant challenges for supply chains globally. Multiple national lockdowns continue to slow or even temporarily stop the flow of raw materials and finished products, disrupting manufacturing as a result. However, some companies are getting profit by receiving more orders in Cambodia, since the situation in this country is more stable and much better than the one in others. Also, exports of clothing products to Europe, US, and Japan are relatively in good shape. And some companies have not had a significant impact. I've also heard that the IT industry is increasing orders from Japan due to the special demand resulted from the COVID pandemic. This speaks to the value of digital supply chains in helping companies avoid disruptive forces and respond quickly to fluctuating demand and supply. On the other hand, the tourism industry, such as hotels and travel agencies, were hit particularly hard, and not a few companies have withdrawn from Cambodia or shrinking their business. The impact on the transportation industry is also severe. So, as you know, ANA has stopped operating direct flight between Phnom Penh and Tokyo since January this year. Other than that, I understand that the financial insurance sector is relatively strong. This is our overview of the impacts of COVID. On mute.
Thank you very much, Yoko-san. It's been comprehensive on your analysis of that. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Tassilo Brinzer, I turn to you now. So what has COVID-19 impacted the European businesses in Cambodia?
Thank you, Sopanya. I'm sorry, the video was turned off, I think, by the host. Maybe I didn't shave well today or something. But maybe you can turn it on again, but if not, I'll just continue here. So for us, actually, I think obviously, as Anthony said, yeah, the tourism and hospitality sector was really very, very strongly impacted. That was a big shock for sure. But we also had some areas that saw quite a bit of growth. For example, telecoms were doing very well. Internet companies were doing very well because people stayed at home and they streamed more and they browsed more and they also shopped more. So e-commerce, some of the e-commerce platforms did quite well. As Anthony said, yes, delivery companies did very well during the pandemic. I think just from looking out here on the streets, I think I see a little bit less of the delivery companies now that the restaurants are open again. Yeah? So we have to see how that transpires over the next year or two, if that is really a fundamental change or if that was a phenomenon during the crisis. Also pretty well have done some of the healthcare companies and the importers, so who sold medicines, for example, they did well. Logistics companies, some of them have done very well, especially those with their own airplanes, such as DHL, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So they had their own planes to come to Cambodia, and a lot of imports and products that were necessary here came through them. So some of them did well, not all. of course, but so no, there was definitely some winners in the business community during the crisis as well. Yeah, so that's about it.
Thank you very much, Tassilo. I can't agree more with you that this unprecedented health crisis has brought about lots of impacts, but at the same time, it brought about some opportunities as well. Some companies are thriving during this period. We actually comment those companies with innovation and strategies, to cope with this economic tsunami given this unprecedented health crisis. I think that everybody may agree that COVID-19 is basically very expensive in terms of the cost of health and containment of the disease, the vaccination, so on and so forth. Because it is expensive, I think that we should draw upon it good lessons from them as well. So if I'd like to ask our speaker to simply share maybe up to 3 points of good lessons that we learned from COVID-19 so that we prepare for the future. May I go back to Anthony on that? You can shed some light.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the lessons I've seen in the businesses that probably have failed or in financial difficulty is you can't live off your last paycheck, as we say in the US, that you need to have cash flow and a cushion and a capital cushion. And if that's the case, a lot of these businesses just that we've seen that have failed that just didn't have the sustainability to survive in a short-term period. So I think that is forecasting, budgeting, and emergency situations like this where you don't expect, then that's for sure that you need to have your capital cushion. Mm-hmm. I think adaptation probably would be the second, and I wouldn't say you have to transform, just to say transform, but adapting. I think we had to adapt to a situation. For us in service businesses, it might have been supporting our customers, given that the receivables were becoming longer and longer in some cases. So if you're adding to what we call in banks acceleration, you're asking your customers to pay when they can't, you're just helping them in a demise eventual. So it's trying to those loyal customers and that you believe will survive, to adapt and to allow them a little bit more leniency on payments. And adaptation also, I think you saw in the restaurant businesses, they had to adapt from in-house dining to delivery, as we spoke about a lot today. So you have to rethink your business quite quickly. You have to be agile on your feet and certainly to adapt. And the other thing in the end is the customer. We saw a tremendous amount of anxiety amongst consumer base. They were really afraid to leave, and the government messages were probably taken much more harshly than the government intended, that there was a real deep concern if they walked out of the house, they may die tomorrow. So we saw the death of the consumer really for a long period of time, especially during lockdowns and curfews. So really you have to build your customer loyalty. I've seen in businesses where customer loyalty was there, those businesses really had much more sustainability. You can't take your customers for granted ever, we know that, but this especially taught us how important it is to have your customers loyal.
Well, these are very, very important points, Anthony. Thank you very much. Yogo-san, your opinions, please.
Okay, so thanks to the effort from the Cambodian government, now in Cambodia, vaccinations are underway and economic activities are gradually resuming. The COVID disaster has made it possible to do a lot of things online. But there are many things that can be done without actual human traffic to start a new business. So it will take a long time for things to return to the way they used to be. But I believe that when people start moving back and forth, business activities will be stimulated and the economy will turn around. In the manufacturing industry, in my member companies, I have heard that the engineers from Japan have begun to visit the country for technical support. Currently, we are JBAC, the activity, are able to conduct almost 80% of our annual events utilizing the online system. All of our department meetings and committee activities are conducted online. What we have not been able to do is mainly cultural and sports events that attract people. We used to have some sport events like bowling tournament every year, but we are not able to hold it this year. We have not been able to hold any events that involve meals, even our annual general meeting. While keeping an eye on future trends, we will continue to provide flexible online, offline support for each meeting and event. We'd like to ensure that the opportunities for members to interact with each other do not decrease even when all events are online. In addition, we will continue to maintain the benefits of membership by enhancing the contents of the website, also promptly sharing information through email. This is kind of the activity to encourage even under COVID situation. This is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoko-san. Well, Tassilo, the lessons that you can you think that businesses should take, should learn from COVID-19. Please go ahead.
Well, I think first of all, this crisis has shown us that we're all vulnerable to such crises, and COVID is one. There may be many others, right? For people who have been around for a while, there was a financial crisis. There was SARS before in Cambodia, also in the first decade. So there will be more crises coming on us, and we need to constantly prepare and be ready for business and be adaptive. That concerns all businesses. And I'm sure that is a lesson that many of us have learned. None of us expected such a pandemic to come up on us in the 21st century, right? We were all looking forward to grow, and the economy was growing, Cambodia was growing, and all of a sudden there comes this shock and this hit, and it came as a big surprise. And for example, in our membership, we lost probably 20% of our members because they simply went out of business or were not able to afford a membership, for example, right? So in particular in the tourism and hospitality industry. But what we have also learned is that, what many of us have done during this crisis is to investigate our businesses, look through all aspects of our businesses and see where we can become more efficient, where we can save costs. We have trained our staff, for example, and tried, first of all, try to retain the staff, keep them ready, because what we don't want is that staff leaves and we have to start with new people once the crisis is over, right? And have to train them again and have to bring them up to speed and make them acquaint them with our businesses. So this was very important, I think, to retain and then train the staff. And also the digital transition was something that we embraced, and many of us embraced. Yes, we use, for example, at Eurocham, we do many training programs for professionals, and they all went online, and it was embraced by the community. We had actually a growth in that sector. So we had more participants in the digital trainings than we had in the real life trainings, right? So maybe also because it's easier accessible, but definitely we've seen some positive developments there. And for companies as a whole, you know, we use this time as well to get future ready. So we, for example, in some of our business, my businesses, we invested in cloud systems, in HR softwares, in you know, new time attendance softwares, etc. So we reviewed our whole businesses and tried to kind of get them ready for the post-crisis scene, so that we can, as soon as the country opens up, be there again. You know, and I think that has worked quite well. For Eurochem, we have, as an organization, we made it. We made that transition. And also for some of our businesses here, yes, and for my personal businesses, certainly as well. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful, Tassilo. I agree completely with you on that. You know, we wish we could hold this seminar physically, where we can interact face to face there, and we can also talk to other participants as well. But given the situation, actually it presented another opportunity for us. We can do it from the distance. It saves some of our times from traveling on the road, and it saves us a lot of logistical cost as well. I think that we become more efficient in holding meetings. I think this is one of the positive side of this, that we actually now move to this online platform discussion. Anyway, that's very good. I think what we have discussed for the past two questions, we actually just take stock of what has happened and what lessons we have drawn. But I think we should look forward, because things that has happened, it happened already. Let's take a look at what is coming next. So I just would like to hear your perspective as to the outlook of the business and investment in Cambodia. How do you see the future will hold post-COVID in Cambodia in terms of businesses from Europe, from America, or from Japan?
Thank you. I thought I pressed it. Apologies. I've always been a Cambodia bull. I think you know, Cambodia has been underrated tremendously as what we used to call Asian tigers. Its growth record over the last 20 years has been in the top 5 countries in the world, if not even top 3. And as an economy, it gets, as I said, tremendously underrated. It has a lot to do with obviously how well the governments managed this crisis in terms of what I look for in the future. I think there are a lot of numbers flying around, but the official numbers with 84% vaccinated is amongst the top in the world. We're prepared for, I think, any variant that we're getting these days. Hopefully there's not going to be something that gets worse, but the preparation for recovery is there on the foundation of just how well we managed this crisis. So we have only had, although very sad, the casualties were only about 121. Sorry, only 3,000, and overall only 121,000 persons got it in Cambodia. Compared to the deaths in the world, which are about 5.2 million, we're just a marginal piece. So kudos to the government. I applaud the government for great work with pandemic management, and also the people of Cambodia, which did not really bristle at the fact that there was a lot of protocols put in place. There was curfews and lockdowns, and everybody really rallied and stood behind what the government asked them to do. Other countries, not so much, as we've seen in the world. That it's been a really hard transformation for people to have to change their behavior in some other countries. And Cambodia really followed what the government asked them to do, and we had the minimumst of impact in terms of social impact. Economic impact also very small. I mean, we lost probably 2 to 3% last year in 2020. Although the ADB thinks we're going to grow 4% this year, I think that's being optimistic. We'll probably grow less than that. Hopefully, it's still positive growth, which I think will happen. But we're looking forward to 5.5% next year, which is getting us back to our range close to 7% annually. I think a lot of sectors will do tremendously well. I see investment in real estate coming back strongly, which should support construction. Right now, that's suffering pretty badly right now. We see a lot of buildings have halted, some bankruptcies in real estate. I think the investment will come back. We have a huge investment from China. Usually a wave like that will really, again, support us. Sihanoukville will be probably the first in terms of tourism. Although it's gaming, it's still tourism. We'll see a big rebound in tourism there, and not so much Siem Reap. In terms of services and manufacturing, I think for sure as the global economies rebound, especially in our garment sector, the US, I think, will have to even off a bit because the US demand was just unprecedented for Cambodia, growing 30-something% now in terms of the exports. But I think you'll see Europe come back, you'll see the rest of Asia come back, and there'll be investment in Cambodia for manufacturing. RM Asia's just invested in a Ford plant here. That's a tremendously positive sign. It's an American company. Ford is the largest selling car in Cambodia. That investment in assembly here is a massive plus. And hospitality is going to be tough. Banking is very strong. A great job by the NBC. I hope the banking sector supports the economy by continuing to lend. Microfinance as well. We're going to need some businesses to get back on their feet. The government support will eventually cease. So the banking system is going to be a key for that. Insurance is growing as well. So generally all positive. Hospitality is obviously the biggest concern. I still think that's going to drag along. Unfortunately, may not recover as fast. But I'll leave it at that.
Yes, wonderful, Anthony. Wonderful on intervention on that. Yoko-san, how about the Japanese businesses? How do they see investment and business in Cambodia now and going forward?
Okay, so as I said just before, some Japanese companies, including like manufacturing companies and also some companies exporting the clothing products, that is now the good condition. And also as I say that thanks to the Cambodian government, now the vaccinated, the percentage is now very high, over 90%. That is very good situation in company's activity. And some like, for example, retail business, like Aeon Mall. Now I get the information from the Aeon people that the number of the customer is now recovering to the 80% comparing to the 2019. That is a good sign. So now the sales of in each shop is also now going up. That is a good trend, I think. Also, as Anthony and Tashiro mentioned, that some medical healthcare sector, Sunrise Hospital is also now getting back to the not normal, but getting back very dramatically. And people is now very, how to say, relieved to come to the hospital. So that is also a good trend. And also some like infrastructure business. We are now conducting the road construction, road number 5, as a grant aid project, Japanese government. This is also achievement is now very good, and will complete by the end of the next year, hopefully. And so the many construction companies very active, and we are very waiting for the timing to invite people, engineers from Japan. So now it's good timing for them to come to Cambodia and to go there to supervise the project. This is also a good situation. And yeah, some manufacturing company like Sumitomo, Denso, Minebea, they also said that among the global supply chains, the Cambodia is kind of the good place to how can I say that it's they have a good chance to expand the business since the situation is very stable. That's why their business is also now going well. This is the kind of example of in the Japanese company situation.
Thank you very much. How about our European friends?
Sorry?
Well, I think the Europeans is a bit similar actually than Americans. Japanese companies actually really stand out in Cambodia and their investment in manufacturing. But for Europeans, it's very similar to Americans. You see us everywhere on the streets, you know, you see the companies, but they're not really heavily investing in Cambodia. That is an issue that we always constantly try to address. For Eurochem, we have switched a little bit in our efforts to attract European investors to Cambodia, which is clearly one of our main mandates. We switched a bit from trying to get them from Europe. We try now to get them from the region, right? Because we just believe that, we have learned that companies that are already in the region, let's say maybe in Vietnam or in Thailand or in Malaysia, and they have operations there, they already have experience in Asia, they already understand a little bit how things work. They are engaged in other countries here, so they have an interest also to expand maybe in the region and to diversify their manufacturing. So this is something that we very much have on mind. Indeed, Cambodia is in a good position, as has been said. The fight against COVID was a huge success for the country. That needs to be said, and it's really standing out globally in that effort. So that has been a fantastic work. But there's also other reforms that need to continuously be addressed. You know, there needs to be more reforms need to be constantly initiated, launched. We had during the crisis, for example, together with our Japanese colleagues and also other chambers here, we have worked on the investment law, on the latest update of the investment law, which does include, which is quite a bit more progressive, I would say, and more open and offers more incentives to investors, and also includes some of the key important areas. For example, renewable energy is a big aspect in there, right? So projects that invest in renewable energy are eligible for investment incentives. So there has been some encouraging signs. Also in January, we expect a few trade agreements to launch, right? There's the RCEP that's coming online. There's also the China-Cambodia trade agreement. So we hope that Cambodia will be more attractive also for European companies or Chinese companies, for example, that want to export to Europe, right? We still have the EBA in place, even though 20% were cut. But let's not forget, those 20% were on the lower end of the 100%. As well, that concerned products that Cambodia anyways doesn't really want to export on the long term, right? So the higher value products still have complete full free market access to Europe. So there's still a huge opportunity. Then, of course, for us also, Europe is always on the forefront of, trying to of rules-based trade, as we call it, right? So there is a few challenges that will come up, and we need to address those as business community, as Eurochem we will, and we do. For example, there is certain due diligence programs that are coming up now, supply chain challenges. For example, there's a law now in Germany, and it will certainly come to Europe and probably even to America at some point, that you need to audit production processes globally. Right. So do they incorporate environmental aspects, for example? Are the clothes or the products produced with renewable energy? That will be a big challenge. Also labor rights issues in that context, human rights in labor, right? For example, can we guarantee that the exports, there's nobody under 16 has been working in that factory, for example, right? Are women treated fairly, etc. So there's a few issues that will need to be addressed. We're working on. Climate change is a huge topic. Is absolutely big for the future. We need to incorporate all the way we work and the way we promote Cambodia. We need to incorporate climate change. We need to incorporate renewable energy. Right? Let's take H&M, for example. By 2030, they cannot use or produce anything without renewable energy anymore. So that means by 2027, they need to make a decision if they are able to produce in Cambodia with 100% renewable energy. Right? That is a challenge. So there's many of these challenges. Also, what did I have? Renewables. And then, of course, we need to address the transition to digital. So this is something where we need to work on, continue to work.
Oh, thank you very much, Tassilo. You are right there. We have some optimisms, and at the same time, we also have a number of challenges to overcome, to address as well along the way. We know that given the unfolding situation of COVID, as well as the development of international trade system overall, we will have to be able to adapt to the changing situation. Thank you very much. But anyway, I am very happy with the very positive and optimistic note of the outlook of our economy of Cambodia.
សូមអរគុណដែលបានចូលរួមស្ដាប់ podcast របស់សមាគមសហគ្រិនវ័យក្មេងកម្ពុជា YEAC podcast នេះត្រូវបានឧបត្ថម្ភដោយទីភ្នាក់ងារជំនួយអាមេរិក USAID តាមរយៈអង្គការ PAC ប្រចាំនៅកម្ពុជា